Hi everyone, this is Barbara Beckman here. How are you today? I was preparing for a painting party that I'm teaching tomorrow night. I teach paint and sip classes here in New York, and I was procrastinating all week. My kids had off, or were supposed to have off for school, and they lost so many snow days that they ended up taking them back, and it's just been a crazy week. So I sent my kids yesterday, and there was like nobody in school, so half the school is on vacation apparently, and it's just been an absolutely crazy week. So I put this off. I'm teaching this tomorrow night, and here it is, Thursday night, midnight, and I just finished it. So I figured I'd film it. It's a 16 by 20 inch canvas. It's a really simple paint and sip style acrylic painting. I use Chromacryl paints. They are by Dick Blick, and they are student grade. You can use any kind of acrylic paint for this. I love golden paint when I paint like my paintings that I sell. I definitely use higher quality paint. But these are really, really wonderful, creamy, rich paint, and they are called Chromacryl, and Dick Blick sells them. It's their particular brand that they, I guess, own and manufacture for their company. They are absolutely one of my favorites for teaching. So all I did was I just took some white, I put a line across it to establish like a horizon line, and I just put the white down first, mixed with some water, so it wasn't really thick, it was kind of thinned down. And I just took some of this very bright, cool blue, and I just took a very, very little amount. And if you can see, I make kind of like X's with my wrist, and that's how I like to paint. That's just my style of blending. So I want it very, very light up top, and I just use the blue, and I just mix it in with the white that I already have there, and I start to create or build up my sky. So this paint, like I said, it's a student grade paint, but it's really, really wonderful. I buy it in gallon sizes just because I teach so much. Tomorrow night's class is actually a small one for me. I think there are 30 people coming. It's a fundraiser, so when people have more than 25 people, I give them a discount in pricing. So a lot of times they'll charge a lot more, like they'll charge $45, $50 to attend this. So they're going to be making some money, and I'm going to be making some money. And then they have tricky trays and a bunch of other like 50-50 and things like that. If you don't know what a tricky tray is, I'll explain that in a few minutes, because a lot of people are like, what the heck is that? But I don't know if it's just popular here in New York. You can also Google it and get some information on it. If you're ever thinking of having a fundraiser, it's an awesome thing to do. So let me just catch you up on what I'm doing here now with my painting. So it's just a very bright yellow. I'll put all the list to the paint that I actually used from Dick Blick. But honestly, if you have just any kind of bright yellow paint will work. I mean, it'll look slightly different than mine, but you know what? You're learning, or you just want a nice, simple, easy painting to do for a beach theme or summer, or just to practice. So just grab any yellow. It's not a big deal. You know, I wouldn't use like a dark mustardy color, but just a nice, sunny, bright yellow. So this is a skin tone color, and I'm using that right on the bottom of the line there before it would actually meet the darkest blue of the water. So that's good. That line's, it's just regular painter's tape. You can use masking tape from the dollar store. That works really well. But I have regular blue painter's tape here, so that's what I'm using. So I'm just taking the sandy kind of color, skin color, and I'm just hitting that along that line there, getting a nice straight edge. I'm going to be also adding just a tiny bit of pink to that in a few minutes here, just to have it more or less like a sun setting. You know how it has that bright, vibrant color pinks in the sky. So I'll be doing that in a second. So if you do something like this and you added some of that yellow like I did, if you noticed, I only added it where the white was, and I did not go onto the blue at all. And that's because if you're going to mix those two together, they're still wet. You don't want any green in the sky there. So I just kind of step back here and there. I take a look at it from a distance and just try to form a nice light colored sky. I wasn't looking for anything too vibrant, just very, very pastel-y kind of colors at this point. And I just use my X little motion with my hands and fade things in or blend things in to make it, you know, look like a sky. So So as I was painting, I just realized I didn't put down any protection on my mat, and I just grabbed a piece here, so I edited a little. But I just use freezer paper, the Reynolds wrapped freezer paper. I find it best to protect my work surfaces. So I just stuck a piece underneath my canvas here, so I didn't totally ruin my mat. So I continue just going back and forth and make sure I do the sides of this thing. Now this has to be pretty simple because I'm teaching it to a class, and the class should take about an hour and a half, 2 hours tops. So I do go slow and I give step-by-step instruction. But I'm always stopping for people. You know, we're making jokes in between. People are talking. People are always running out of white paint. It's like I can't bring enough white paint with me to these events. So I'm just adding some more white up there to the sky, kind of creating some clouds. I'm just dabbing, really. I got, you know, pretty much the color where I want it. And now I just want to kind of just touch and get out of there, lightly touching to form some cloud formations. So it's pretty simple. It's a great painting for a beginner, and I like to teach these. So now we're coming into, you know, spring, but people are thinking ahead and they're wishing for warmer weather. So my clients for this one chose a nice beach theme. So they actually had a painting that they found online and they picked out, but because of copyright issues, I can't copy anything, and I would never copy anything anyway unless I had artist permission to do so, just because I'm an artist and I wouldn't want somebody to do that to me. That's another reason why I won't do it. But they really love this painting, so I changed it around as much as I can, so you know, it's not I'm not stealing anybody's work. But I needed to. They wanted the beach theme, they wanted sand, and they wanted some like sticks or poles or fence or something like that, some wood, driftwood kind of stuff. So I incorporated what they loved in the painting and just changed it around enough so it would work for me. So here I'm just adding some pink to the bottom where that kind of skin color was, just to give it some more color in the bottom there, because it was kind of light and pale. It's such a pretty painting, and it's so easy. I love teaching stuff like this. It's a happy painting. I have a lot of fun at these things. You get everybody's different skill levels, and it's just, it's hysterical. I have a great time. I don't even feel like I'm working. So what I decided to do here is I took some of that brighter blue. It's like a cool blue, and I added it to the top. And the paint is still wet, so I'm able to push it around and kind of fade it in. But I wanted the top to be a little bit more defined or have a darker color. So you can always go back in and add color and change things up if you make a mistake, or if you think you need something darker or lighter. Just play with it. Just take your time and just form some clouds. But like I said a minute ago, just be careful if you take that yellow and the blue and hit those two together. You're definitely going to end up with a green sky. So try to avoid that at all times. So yeah, these are a lot of fun, and people love these classes. I teach a lot around here. I started taking a little bit of a step back just because I was getting burnt out. I was teaching every single Friday and Saturday night for over a year, and it's great money if you can do this wherever you live. It really is a lot of fun. The money's wonderful. Like I said, I have 5 women that work for me, so it's nice. They're friends of mine, so we have a lot of fun. They make some extra money. I give them $100 a night to go with me, so they definitely earn their pay because they run around all night for me. When I have really big fundraisers, I have one of the girls can paint, so she actually sets up an easel and paints so the entire room can see me. A lot of times the parties are so big, or the fundraisers are so big, that I end up having to get a screen and a microphone and just being projected up on a screen as well. So it's nice to have somebody paint on the other side of the room for me or along with me. So all I'm doing is taking the darkest of the blue here. It's kind of like a navy blue, a little bit brighter maybe. There is a name for it. Chromacryl has it. Like I said, I'll list everything for you in the comment section if you want to try that. I'm not affiliated with Dick Blick at all. I have no affiliation. I won't make any money if you buy their paint from them or anything. I just really love this for teaching purposes. So that's why this is my go-to paint. So all I did was take that straight darkest blue right out of the bottle and put a line there pretty thick line. Just the top part of the line is where you want pretty straight to determine your horizon line. So I'll start to come up with different blues to meet that line and kind of fade it in. But as long as that top part is nice and dark, or the darkest part, it'll work, because it's going to be water that's out in the distance that's very, very dark. So all I'm doing now, and I apologize, some of it got cut off on the video camera. I'm using a different camera now. It's actually a better quality camera, but yes, my camera's better, but it's really hard to download and figure it out. So I apologize. My videos might be a little wonky for a little bit. Yeah, I got to figure that out. So anyway, I'm just basically taking, it's like a kind of a brown kind of color, looks like a camel kind of color. And I'm just drawing in the bottom here, which I didn't even realize was off camera most of the time, but I did move it up in a few minutes. But like I said, I'm just trying to get used to this new setup that I have. It's just crazy. I liked my old one so much better, but the video quality was not as good. So anyway, please bear with me until I figure this out. So I just blocked in the sand below, like the sand dunes, and now I'm just taking the paint and the blue paint, and I'm coming up top to meet that dark blue line that I just established over there. And see, as soon as you touch them together, they really come together really nicely. It blends really well. This paint is amazing. So anyway, I'm just using some dark blue, some of that bright cool blue, and some white. And I'm just, as I go back to the plate that I have it on, I'm just picking up, I'm alternating whichever color I'm picking up. So I'm not picking up the same color twice. So I have a lot of white on the brush now, and I'll go back and probably pick up some blue. Then I might switch to white. So I'm just alternating whatever color, just to have a different, so it's not flat, in other words. I'm using the three different colors here. So it's the cool blue, the dark blue, and the white. So just keep in mind, you just go back and forth like a horizon, just as long as it's kind of straight. I'm barely touching the canvas. You really can't tell. Just as lightly as I can, just trying to think of waves or movement in the water. Just kind of blocking it in at this point, just to slap it on there and get a good coverage. So this takes a while to paint, just because people, everybody moves at their own speed, and some people don't understand the directions. Some people can't hear the directions. But this is really going to be a fun one to paint, and I'll post pictures of it so you can see. So maybe I'll post some of my other parties that I've done. I do so many parties. They're really, really great fundraisers too. So let me talk about Tricky Tray for a second. So Tricky Tray is popular here in New York, and what that is that people go around to stores and different businesses and ask them if they want to donate anything. So a lot of times they'll give a basket. Say, for instance, a liquor store will give a basket of cheer. So they may give you $50 worth of liquor, and you might put it in a basket on your own and just make it nice and put some cellophane wrapping on it and bows or whatever. And you'll get a bunch of different baskets from all different places. Gift cards, like if you get a gift card or you get a gift certificate or something, you put it in a nice fancy frame, and you can get frames at like thrift stores or something, dollar stores. Just make it fancy, glue some flowers on it from the dollar store or whatever. So people go around and you'll have like little jars next to each one, and they'll buy tickets. So say the tickets are an arm's length for $10, and maybe they'll get 15 tickets. So they can put a ticket in any particular basket that they want to kind of bid on. And at the end, you pick out one of the tickets, and whoever gets it wins. That generates a lot of money at fundraisers. So you're getting people in to do the paint and sip part of it as well. So they're having a great time. They're drinking, they're having fun, they're laughing, they're painting, they go home with a masterpiece. But you're also bringing in other income from these baskets that were all donated, and you're generating more money that way too. So that's why they're so popular here in New York. But a lot of people, I say Tricky Tray, and they don't, no clue what I'm talking about. Okay, so back to my painting. So once I have some of the lights in that would look like the white caps on the waves, I just go underneath them with the darkest of the blues just to give a shadow. and create some other interest too. So I keep looking at it and just stepping back. I do this very, very quickly. These have to take me, honestly, I'm doing this in real time, so it's about an hour from start to finish. My clock here, my video says 55 minutes, so that's all the time I spent on this. And now I was picking up, you know, other things along the way. Like I realized I didn't have the wrap underneath, and then I ran out of water, so it probably took me 45 minutes, maybe 50 minutes to do this in real time. But to teach it will take an hour and a half to 2 hours, just because it's step by step, and I have to wait for everybody to kind of catch up to where we're all at, so I'm not going ahead of anybody. So that was easy. We blocked in the sky already, and we blocked in the water, and it's relatively easy. You really can't make mistakes at these. They're really quite simple to do, and they're just a good way to learn if you're just starting out learning how to paint and just getting the feel for the paint and the brush, and you know how to move your wrists, etc. So I apologize again. Part of my bottom is not in my camera, and I didn't realize it because it's new, but I did just any second here, and then I just slid the canvas up or down or whatever so you could see and get that back into focus. It's just a learning curve here. This camera's much better quality. I hope you can see the difference in the film. So just as soon as I learn that, I think they'll be a lot better. I know when I first started filming with my other camera, I was all over the place too, and then it became like breathing. It was so easy. So I'm just using some browns, and I'll use some skin color. My palette, I rushed and I glopped it out. You see how all the paints like all mixed together. I generally don't work like that. I just procrastinated so much because of school and everything this week that I did not paint this, and I started to get a little anxiety that I'm not prepared. Like usually by now everything's prepared and packed and my car's ready to go, and you know, tomorrow won't be a crazy day for me because I will be leaving here. I'll leave my house late afternoon, and then it takes me about 2 hours to set up, an hour and a half, and then I just kind of take a breathing time before people start coming. So the fundraiser starts at 7:30. The doors open at 7, and I like to have all the paint and everything out on the tables by then. So I usually have all this ready and set up, so on Friday during the day I don't have to stress and run around and worry about anything. But I'm behind, as I said. So I've just blocked in with some brown, and I'll go in with a little bit of a darker brown. I'll mix it. I have some darker brown on the plate here, and I have some black. I don't tend to use a lot of black in my paintings. I would like to just make a darker color with whatever I mix together. I do that when I'm selling paintings, you know, that I'm working on myself, not teaching. But these are not supposed to be like an instructional where you're teaching any real painting instruction. These are just to have fun. These are just to get a basic painting and maybe give somebody the confidence to learn how to paint or to fall in love with painting. So that's what these are intended for. These are very, very quick, simple paintings that anybody can paint. I sometimes practice on my daughter, Aislinn, who's only 9 years old. So when she was about 7, I'm like, okay, paint this with mommy. Let's paint along with me. So if she could master it at 7 years old, then I knew I could teach a huge group of people how to do it. And sometimes people are really, really good. They surprise you. They surprise themselves. And I also have followers. It's funny. I start to recognize people, and they're like, yeah, I followed you from the other town. Or people follow me pretty far, so it's funny getting to know them now. But I've been teaching, oh my gosh, I don't know how many years. I want to say 5 years now, pretty consistently. So yeah, so it's a lot of fun, and I go back to the same places over and over. People make it like a yearly fundraiser event. I also do these in homes. As long as there's 10 people or more, I charge a little bit more for going in the homes, because I do give a discount for fundraising, just because they're guaranteeing me, you know, 50 people or more usually. So with this, what I'm doing is I just want to create some interest. So I'm just grabbing anything that's going to contrast these colors. So they're alike colors. One's lighter than the other, so they're going to go together well. They're the same hue. And I just take dark and lights and kind of very nonchalant just slap it on there. I'm not thinking too much. And I try to tell people that don't overthink things. Try to remember what it's like when you're 5 years old and you just slapping paint onto a piece of paper in art class and you really didn't care. It's that freedom, and it's that ability to not have any fear. And I try to really express that to my students, and I'm like, just, go for it. Just do it. If you don't like it, you can always paint over it. Paint is so forgiving. And I always joke around that people should be as forgiving as paint is. The world would be a much better place. So what I did was I did take a little bit of black here. I do use black in my sip and paints, like I said, just because it's just easier to create this instead of having to mix things. It's just, it's like a cheat, I guess. So I took a little bit of that black and I put it in with my darkest brown. And I'm not actually painting, I'm dabbing at this particular point. So I just want to create some sort of foliage on top of these mountains. They're not mountains, they're like sand dunes, I guess. So I just dab, I just go up and down. Not like I was working with a stencil. It's not a hard brush. This is a 3/4 inch flat brush. So I only give people 2 brushes, and that's all they are allowed to work with. This brush is a 3/4 flat, and the other brush is a number 10 round. And that number 10 round has to make really skinny lines, and also can make thicker lines and a lot of foliage. So that's the only 2 brushes that I let them have. When I first started teaching these things, I went with like 4 or 5 different brushes, fan brushes and thin liner brushes. It was a disaster and a nightmare for me. And 1, cleanup was horrible. And 2, it just got too time consuming, like people getting too nitpicky with this, painting something that you're supposed to cover a lot of coverage with, a large area with like a liner brush. So I had to learn as I went, and I've totally eliminated that. So they get 2 brushes, and that's what you'll see me using here throughout. So I always darken up the corners. Every corner generally is darker, and I do that for a reason. I do that because I want your eye to be drawn into the center of the painting. And by darkening up your edges, it just kind of gives your eye an illusion, and it will automatically pull your eye towards the center of that painting. So I always encourage people to darken up their edges and their corners no matter what. So I already have these 2 like driftwood things, or whatever they are, fences. I already have them blocked in. So you missed that because I'm trying to figure out my lovely camera. I look up, apparently it's a digital camera. I have 2 professional cameras, a Nikon D7000, which I love, and the video, it only tapes 20 minutes and then it shuts off. There's no warning, it just shuts off. And from what I'm reading online, they all do that, all the SLR cameras. So at least with my camcorder and stuff, I knew it was shutting off, or I heard a click or something. This gives you no warning. So I've been trying to time it 20 minutes on my iPhone just so I glance over and make sure it's still filming or not. And I totally missed the part where I put those driftwood sticks in. But I just added them straight up and down there with a very dark color. And I didn't highlight or shaded anything at this point. And some of the blue got mixed in with the water, and I'm fine with it because it's going to dry and I'm going to go over it again with some other colors. So I'm working on these little like seagulls here, and this is another thing that's hard to teach people. They spend too much time trying to figure these seagulls out. It's really like a blob. It's a blob for a body and these little wings, and then I'll come back and I'll highlight them with some white and a little bit of a darker gray. I make them a gray kind of color because they're in the distance. You can't really have any detail. I don't see their face, their eyes, their beaks, nothing. It's just a suggestion or something to trick your eye. A lot of painting is that. It's a fool your eye to make you think that something's there. For instance, when I do a lot of foliage and stuff, or when I teach people how to do palm trees, the branches are very wispy, kind of like, that wispy foliage. I don't have to paint every single one in. And if my paint gets like skipped along the way for a branch, like if my branch isn't so perfectly there, and I might skip a section, your eye fills it in anyway. So I don't stress about things like that. But I've been painting, you know, for 40 years. So people do stress about that, and it's hard during some of these paintings because people are so good. They get to the end, and that's where you add all these little details in. And I just try to sit with these people because I walk around when I paint. I paint and then I take little breaks, and I do walk around. I talk to everybody, encourage everybody, and I give them personal tips. So I see somebody who's really, really has great potential and is enjoying it, and they can totally ruin it here at this point because they get so, try to be such a perfectionist and get nitpicky, and they end up ruining it. And it happens, oh my gosh, all the time. And I get frustrated because I don't want them to get to the end and ruin it, and then they get frustrated and not want to paint or not want to come back to a party. So it happens all the time, I can't tell you. And it's just, I almost force people to use the back of their brush too, because it forces them to be a little more freer or looser when they paint. And that does help a little bit. And I also have them practice on a tablecloth. I use the dollar store tablecloths underneath all my paintings, underneath all the easels. So before I have them commit, I try to get them to practice. So what I'm doing now is I just took some of the darker brown and just choosing one side that's going to be darker than the other. So one side's going to be my shadow. So I chose the right side of these sticks that are sticking out of the ground for this fence, this broken driftwood fence. And the dark side's going to be on my right. And like I said, I didn't care in the beginning that it was mixing in with some of that blue paint from the background. They're not going to dry during my parties. It's just not going to happen. So sometimes people leave their paintings at the hall or wherever it's at, and they'll come back the next day and pick it up. Or some people try to put it in the plastic bag, and I'm like, that's not really a good idea because the bag's going to close and they're going to totally ruin their painting. But some people lay the plastic garbage bags on their seats and they put it on top of there. I've heard crazy stories. So yeah, this paint's not going to dry too quickly, but it's going to dry enough where I can add another layer on top of it. So I'm able to add a darker layer over this brown mixture to the right side of that fence there. So I'm still playing around with this camera and this editing stuff, just trying to produce better videos for you. I want you to know that I'm really trying, but I'd much rather be painting. This editing part and this video thing is sometimes often very frustrating, and sometimes I want to quit. But as long as everybody's watching and I'm getting good feedback, then I'll continue to do this for now. So I just zoomed in a little bit with this new editing thing that I'm using, and you're able to kind of see a little bit more detail. So what I'm doing now with the same round brush, the number 10 round brush, is just trying to create very wispy, kind of very skinny lines. I'm just taking my time. This is where people ruin it. This is where I look and there's like their lines are as thick as those driftwood that I have over there. I'm like, oh my gosh. So now this looks too perfect, my little tree here. So I start to get quicker, because that's what I'm saying about being free and looser. They just come out much better when you do that. And then I start to overlap my lines, because that's what happens in nature. So if you overlap your lines and you just kind of go as quick and as loose as you can, you're going to have a much better painting. So I realize I've been doing this for a long time, and people look at me when I'm teaching them and they're like, no, I can't do that. So they're staying there with this little tiny brush trying to make these tiny lines, and they come out thicker and crazy. And the ones who don't care and they're like had a couple of drinks in them, they really are like, whatever, I'm slapping this on here. They're nice and thin and wispy because they're not thinking about it or stressing about it. It's just amazing to me that that happens. But I guess when you mix alcohol with anything, you just kind of get into that, well, who cares kind of mode, I guess. Yeah, so it's fun. I a lot of different things happen at these painting things. One time, I have to tell you a quick story. I was painting, and this girl came, and she had already had a few drinks by the time she got to my thing. And she was drinking something there. I don't know what she was drinking, but she was pretty drunk. And she had long hair, long curlyish hair, and she was painting it right into the canvas. And I kept saying to her, watch your hair. You know, maybe do you have a ponytail holder? You want to put your hair back? She was just laughing. She was having such a good time. But she got up to use the ladies' room, and her painting was literally painted and like dried right into her hair. And she went in, used the ladies' room. Everyone was laughing. She came back out. She just literally took her canvas and put it right back on her easel, started painting again. Hair stuck in it still and everything. So I don't know what happened to that girl. I don't know these people. They just, you know, pay to come to these events. And I often wondered what happened to her hair. If she had to cut it or if she had to soak it. It was a hot mess, so I can't imagine. I can't tell you. I've had such crazy things happen. I had a grandmother who was drinking and having so much fun. She was old. She was in her 80s. And she kept drinking the paint water and mixing in her glass of wine to rinse out her paintbrush. And that was just like, no matter what I tried, it was crazy. And then I'd look at her painting and it had dripping paint, like it wasn't even paint, it was wine, red dripping wine. And actually at the end, her painting was phenomenal and amazing. And it's just because she had a fun time, didn't care. So anyway, I could tell you stories all night long. Back to the painting here. So I'm still doing some wispy parts here and just very, very quickly blocking them in. That's basically all I'm doing. So I just continue to work on these little wispy things, little grasses or whatever they are, just growing on the side here. I like this painting. It was really easy, and it's a fun painting. And when you put these into frames, they really look great. Like we have AC Moore here and Michael's, and they have coupons. So if you use a coupon, you can get a frame for $10, a beautiful wooden frame. You can put it in black or wood, whatever color you want. You can stain it, but when you put a frame on these things, they really kind of finish it off and are very nice. So I always tell people that come to my classes to frame it, and I do hear back from them. People email me all the time, or like I said, some people follow me to the different classes. They always bring all their paintings with them. I love teaching these. Sometimes it's a little stressful because I have to make sure I have enough paint on hand. Did I order enough? These are all ordered paint from the internet. There's nothing local I can get here, so sometimes I end up stressing. But this one I'm prepared for now. Now I feel like I can let my hair down. So all I'm doing here is just taking some darker, the browns. I'm using all the same colors, so these are going to be used throughout this entire painting here, just to keep it uniform. And I'm just kind of like thinking about what it looks like, and maybe it's a path down there, or maybe it's, you know, part of the hill. I just wanted it to be a different color, and then I like to add some of that other lighter color back in. I just play around with it to see how it looks. I like the contrasting color, so I always encourage people to make sure you have a lot of contrast or interest going on. And to get that, that's what you do, is just keep adding different tones or different colors, and you'll have the contrast come, and it'll start to kind of develop something. So if you see something starting to form, like a pathway or something, you can go with that. So I'm also taking that same color because I'm trying to incorporate it. I call it cross-pollinating. I don't know what the real term is. I like to incorporate the same colors throughout the painting so everything kind of goes together. So I'm taking that same color that I was using, the lightest of the browns, and I'm using that for some of my highlight on the left side there. And I'm using that skin color as well on the left side of those pieces of that driftwood. So they're going to, you know, be weathered. They're out there. They're going to be in all sorts of storms and salt water. So they're very kind of gnarly looking and rough, and kind of, you can't mess those up. You know, you really can't. You just kind of make them as imperfect as you possibly can, and then that will look perfect, actually. So these like things, I don't know what they are, but on top of them they had kind of like this, like a, not a flower, I don't know if they were those cattails, I'm not quite sure. But I ended up using a color, one of the brown colors as well, because you wouldn't see any of the greenery here. I mean, there wasn't a lot of greenery in it anyway. I could definitely probably have put some in there without a problem, but I didn't want to introduce another color to this party or this class, just because there are 30 of them, and it just gets harder when you introduce too many colors. So this one has, let's see, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9 colors, I think. And that's enough. And when I put the palette, when I put my paint out, I give them foam plates. I give them two. The first top plate has all the paint colors that they'll be using, and on the second plate, which is underneath that plate, is where I try to have them do the mixing. Everybody, I don't know what happens. They mix on the entire plate, and I'm like, you know, mix on the side and mix small. Don't use the whole plate up. But they always do. So anyway, what I'm doing now is I'm just trying to create different colors that were used throughout the painting, getting it very, very watered down. And what I'm going to do is just flick it into the sand area and the just using my finger. Usually it'd be nice to have a toothbrush to do this. If I was doing it on my own painting, I would use a toothbrush that works the best. But these are the only two brushes that they're getting, so they'll be using the biggest of the brushes, and they're going to be flicking onto the sand area there. So they'll be flicking some dark colors, some brown colors, some white, some gray, and they could do as little as they want or as much as they want. People like this part. They really do. It's fun, but it creates a lot of interest, and it looks like they've spent more time on this than they actually did. It's just adding details without really being so detail oriented. These are going to go wherever they want. Hopefully they won't be globbing them into the blue area, the paint, you know, where the ocean is. Oh gosh, I've seen some nightmares too, where I come back and I'm like, oh my heavens, what happened? But I try to explain it to people, and sometimes they go ahead. They're just like, all right, she's going too slow for me, so I'll just put 100 dots with my paintbrush all over to make these specks, and then it looks terrible. But when I get to that part, they're like, oh, why didn't I do that? I'm like, well, because you ran ahead of me and, you know, you messed your painting up. So sometimes they're frantically covering it back over again, trying to start from the beginning. It's funny. So I'm just, like I said, just doing some whites, some grays, some different color browns, just to try to get the suggestion of pebbles or some rocks or something going on there in the sand there. My water is a mess. I don't wash my brush a lot during these things. And some people are like fanatics and they're like, have to clean their brush constantly. And I try to tell them not to clean their brush, because this way it forces them to blend a little bit. Like, I want other colors mixed in. That's also one of the hardest parts I find with teaching. So yeah, don't wash your brush out if you're doing this. Like, of course, obviously, if you're going to be switching from blue to yellow or something, wash your brush. So here I am, I'm just taking that number 10 round brush, and I'm just putting dots, and I'm making sure that I'm leaving spaces between the dots. Not all the time, like some, and that's just to create like little holes or pockets, and that's just for composition. It's just kind of creating some negative space there, and it's going to look like there's those cattails or whatever they're called on the tops of some of these. So I don't hit every single one of them. I do ones that you can actually, you know, see that would really matter. And I also come down. I start at the top of my line, or I start a little bit above it, and I don't quite go to the line. See, that one I didn't touch the line that I drew. So that just causes some more interest, and I made that one a little bit higher than the other ones. So I try to think things that are very uneven and very wispy, different heights to them, different ways they might be blowing in the wind, because it's nature and not all things are going to be the same. So you wouldn't want to do it so repetitive that it would all look exactly the same. That would not look natural. So if you're going to try this at home, follow me step by step, you know, slow down the video, and it's a lot of fun. I've had couples. There's one couple that watches my videos, and it's so cute. They have date night, and they always send me messages saying that they just had their date night and went step by step with my videos. So I want to do a whole series of these, but not as quickly as I'm doing it now. I basically just finished this painting. Actually, the pictures that I took to put up here are still wet. The painting is actually next to me, and it's still wet. So I am going to be doing some series. I'll do about 10 paintings. So 10 sip and paint style paintings, paint along with me. Thinking of doing a series of them and picking like one particular night. So maybe every Tuesday I will be posting a paint and sip class, or I would like to do them on the weekends, but that's when I actually teach real classes, so that's going to be a little bit hard for me. What I could do is film them during the week and then have them post on a weekend night, or it doesn't really matter, I guess, because if I put them up on a Tuesday, you could watch it on a Saturday anyway if you were following along with it weekly. But that's something that I definitely wanted to start getting into. I also wanted to do something like that junk journal that I did. I love that, and I thought it would be kind of cool if we could do something all together and like did like a prompt word. So what I mean by that is I would come up with a word and I would sketch it, and then you guys could do the same thing if you were doing a junk journal, and then we could all post it together, maybe in like a Facebook group or something that I would set up, and we could all kind of get to know each other that way and share our work and get to know each other. I mean, I think that's a really cool thing. So if you have an interest in that, please leave a comment, because I don't want to waste my time if nobody wants to do something like that. So I don't know if I explained that exactly clear enough, but I would start a Facebook group, and anybody who wanted to do it, I would post the link to the video in that group, and we could all work on our journals together and do the same word every week. Or maybe we'll just do like a 10-day journal. So every day for 10 days we would do something. We'd all be doing like the word, say swim. We'd all be creating something around the word swim, and then we could share it and then talk about it or whatever. So anyway, I don't know. I have a bunch of different ideas that I'd like to share with you guys. It's just fun creating, and it's even more fun when you could like get a whole community kind of together, even though it's online. I've met some wonderful artists that I met several years ago in a group that we did like a journal thing like this, and now there's like 35 of us in a small closed group. They don't let anybody else in. I'm not the admin, but it's like very protective group. We're kind of helped each other, and we've helped each other along our journeys, and some people are just starting out and they're amazing. They're just incredible in 4 years what they've learned. And some people help me as far as pricing work, or if they know of a new store that's opened up where I can sell my stuff, or if there's something online where I could sell my paintings. So we all kind of hook each other up and we help each other. So I was thinking of starting something like that. So anyway, I just put this barbed wire around here. Very, very simple. Just make sure you go underneath and over the pieces of wood. So some are going behind the piece of wood and some go over it. And that's going to give the illusion that it's wrapped around. So after I put in all those little like cattail things, the tops of them, I just went ahead, and in the barbed wire I used some gray, some white, and some black, and that's just very light touches to give an indication, and I didn't put like every single barbed wire thing there. It's just an illusion. It's a trick and fool your eye. That's all painting is. If you can figure that out and you could learn how to trick and fool the eye, that's half of the battle. That took me a long time, but I started painting at such a young age, I just couldn't comprehend that. Couldn't, and when the light bulb went off when I was a teenager, I was like, oh my God, like it was just this, really, I remember the day when I was like, I get it now, I get it now. And since then, my art changed immediately from that day forward. Like once I figured out that it was really fooling the eye, it kind of all came together. So what I'm doing now is there's some pockets over here underneath these white caps. I just want to put a little bit more shadow in. So I just took some dark, and I'm just going here and there with it, not really thinking about it too much, just anywhere to create some more interest out in that water area. It's pretty simple. So the painting's actually almost done. It's a really cute painting. You can use your finger like I do too. If you put a little too much on it, I just use my finger. It's not a big deal. So the painting's just about done. My desk looks like a bomb exploded. It's looked horrible. Look at AARP, is that hysterical? My husband just turned 50, and he just got that in the mail, and I've been teasing him crazy. It's so funny. So I use it as a scraper tool. That's why it's sitting up there. I laugh every time I see it. Old man. So anyway, I'm just using some white and putting some more highlights on that driftwood. Put a couple down here below. Pull it out with my finger there. So you kind of can smudge it around or whatever. So just take a look at your composition, see if you like it. I like that the birds are light enough. I don't want them too dark. I don't want my eye to go right there. So my eye's kind of going to those pieces of wood and following that path line. So overall, for a 50-minute painting, not so shabby. I'm pretty happy with it. I think I'll be able to teach this to 30-something people tomorrow night pretty easily. I look forward to painting it, and I'll just do I'll post some videos or a picture tomorrow of the class. Maybe I'll have the girl that works for me. I'll have her take some pictures, and I'll throw them up on a little bit of a video, just so you can take a look at what I do for a living. My crazy life as an artist. Anyway, sign it, date it, and there you go. And I just use a Sharpie for that. It's fine. It's the easiest way to do it. So if you like my videos, please give me the thumbs up. That's the only way I really know if people are happy with them or not. And yeah, I've been getting some thumbs down, and I laugh. I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm getting a thicker skin now. But anyway, here's the painting when it's done. I stood it up to take a picture of it for you. And it's kind of cute, right? It's not so bad for 55 minutes. I think it came out really well. I think they're going to have a great time doing this tomorrow. So wish me luck. Thank you so much, everybody. Have a wonderful day. Have a wonderful night whenever you're watching this. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't. And leave me comments, because your comments are going to let me know what you want or what you don't want to see me doing or whatever. So I do listen to them and take them to heart. So thanks again, everybody. I will be back soon with some more art. Thanks. Bye.